She starts missing you for real when silence replaces your presence, when your focus shifts back to yourself, and when consistency she once ignored disappears. Memories echo, comparisons fail, and time shows your worth. When ego fades, reflection awakens, and only then does longing truly begin. Silence has a way of speaking truths that words often fail to express. When you stop explaining, stop convincing, and stop chasing, the absence of your voice begins to echo louder than any argument you could have made. In the beginning, she may not even notice it. She might think your quietness is temporary, just another pause before you return with the same energy you always gave. But as the days stretch and the silence deepens, she begins to feel its weight. It's not anger that moves her, it's not harsh words, it's simply the absence of sound, the absence of you filling the space. That is when silence becomes louder than every conversation you ever had. People often take consistency for granted. When you were always present, always available, always ready to respond, it created a rhythm she became accustomed to. But the moment you withdraw that rhythm, the quietness creates a void. She notices that her phone isn't lighting up with your messages, her day isn't interrupted by your calls, and her heart isn't being reminded of your presence through your efforts. Slowly, that silence begins to speak in a language she cannot ignore. It tells her that something has shifted, that you are no longer placing her at the center of your world, and that realization stirs emotions she didn't expect. What makes silence powerful is that it forces reflection. Words can be argued with, explanations can be dismissed, but silence leaves nothing to fight against. It's just there, steady and unbending, and it compels her to look inward. She begins to question what happened, what changed, and why she suddenly feels the lack of what she once dismissed. Silence turns the mirror back toward her, making her see not just what she had, but also what she is losing. Over time, silence grows heavier. What felt like freedom at first begins to feel like emptiness. She may have thought your absence would not matter, but now she notices the space you once filled. She realizes how different life feels without your presence in it. That's when longing starts to creep in, not because of grand gestures or persuasive words, but because silence created a contrast she can't escape. The most profound thing about silence is that it carries respect. It shows you are not begging for her attention or validation. It communicates that you value yourself enough not to fight for a place where you are not being valued in return. That quiet strength speaks louder than desperate attempts to hold on. It's a message that cannot be ignored. Your energy is being redirected toward yourself. And in that shift, she starts to miss the version of you who was always there. The silence reminds her of what she had and lost, and it creates a longing she never expected to feel. There comes a point where your energy can no longer be poured into someone else without leaving yourself empty. The moment you redirect that energy inward, everything changes. Self-focus isn't about ignoring her or pretending she doesn't matter. It's about realizing that you matter too. When you stop waiting for her response, stop centering your life around what she thinks or feels, and start giving yourself the love, time, and investment you deserve, something powerful happens. She begins to notice that the attention she once had effortlessly is no longer hers to claim. Your focus on yourself becomes a mirror that reflects her own lack of effort, and it makes her feel the absence in ways words never could. Self-focus creates growth. When you spend your time working on your health, your career, your passions, or simply your peace of mind, you radiate a different kind of energy. Instead of coming across as someone dependent on her validation, you become someone rooted in your own value. This shift is undeniable. People are drawn to individuals who are content within themselves, who do not beg for affection, but instead attract it naturally through the strength of their presence. She begins to miss you not because you are chasing, but because you are no longer available in the same way. Your priorities are realigned, and she realizes that you are investing in areas of your life that make you more fulfilled and stronger than before. The irony is that when you were fully available, giving all your time and attention, she didn't see it as special. It became routine, almost invisible. But when you remove that energy and pour it into yourself, suddenly she sees what she had. The silence of your withdrawal combined with the glow of your self-improvement becomes impossible to ignore. She starts to wonder what you are doing, why you seem different, and why the man who once gave so much now gives to himself. That curiosity slowly grows into longing, and longing grows into missing. What makes self-focus so powerful is that it restores balance. It's not about punishing her, it's about reclaiming your own life. Instead of waiting for her to recognize your worth, you begin to recognize it yourself. This recognition shifts the dynamic completely. She is no longer the one in control of the narrative, because your happiness and progress no longer depend on her. When a woman sees that you are thriving without her attention, that's when the real missing begins. She realizes she is not the center of your world anymore, and the fear of losing that place makes her reflect. By focusing on yourself, you are not only protecting your peace, but also reminding her of what she overlooked. Growth speaks louder than words. Confidence shines without needing validation. The moment you stop chasing and start building yourself, that's when she feels the emptiness of your absence and the undeniable pull of your presence, even from a distance. Consistency is one of the most powerful forces in any relationship, yet it is often the most underestimated. When you show up every day with presence, care, and attention, it creates a rhythm that becomes part of her life. She doesn't think about it much in the moment because it feels normal, predictable, even guaranteed. But when that rhythm is taken away, when the consistent gestures of effort suddenly stop, the silence of that absence hits harder than she ever expected. That is when she begins to feel the withdrawal of your consistency, and it is in that space that missing you for real begins to take root. At first, she might dismiss the shift. She may think you are busy or preoccupied, and she tells herself that your presence will return soon because it always has. But as time passes, the reality becomes harder to deny. The messages that once came like clockwork no longer appear. The calls that used to check in on her day are missing. The thoughtful gestures that reassured her she was cared for are gone. That gap is not filled by anyone else, because no one has the same pattern, the same dedication, or the same way of showing up as you did. The withdrawal of consistency doesn't just remove actions, it removes the security she once felt in your presence. Consistency is what builds attachment. It's the little things repeated over time that leave the deepest mark. And when those little things disappear, the contrast is sharp. She begins to feel the emptiness not only in the lack of your actions, but in the emotional space they occupied. A good morning text may seem small, but when it stops, the absence of it feels enormous. The human heart notices patterns, and when they break, it feels unnatural. That's why the withdrawal of your effort doesn't just make her notice you are gone. It makes her miss the stability and comfort that only you provided. What makes this withdrawal even more impactful is that it communicates something without needing words. You are no longer pouring your energy where it was unappreciated. Instead of pleading for her attention, your silence and detachment show that your consistency was a choice, not an obligation. She realizes that what she thought was endless devotion was in fact your decision to give, and now that decision has shifted. That awareness stirs a longing she cannot control. In the quiet left behind, memories become louder. She remembers the times you showed up without fail, the reliability that gave her reassurance, and the way your presence made her feel cared for. Those memories now exist in contrast with the emptiness she feels today, and as much as she may try to distract herself, that longing remains, because consistency is not something easily replaced. Very few people can provide the steady, dependable presence you once gave, and when she realizes that truth, the missing becomes real. It's not the absence of grand gestures that makes her ache. It's the silence where your reliability once lived. Memories have a way of sneaking into the quietest moments. They come uninvited through a familiar song, a place once shared, or even the scent of something that recalls a specific day. These flashes of the past are powerful because they bypass logic and go straight to the heart. She may think she has moved on, may believe she has closed the chapter, but memories don't respect decisions. They trigger emotions she cannot control. It's in these moments that she starts to miss you for real because what she once took for granted suddenly feels like something rare and distant. At first, the memories are subtle. She might remember the way you laughed at something trivial or the comfort of your presence during a stressful day. She brushes it off, thinking it's just a fleeting thought. But memories don't fade when they are tied to emotions. Instead, they multiply. The more she tries to ignore them, the stronger they come back. A quiet evening might remind her of the way you filled the silence with your energy. A favorite meal might remind her of the times you shared together. These reminders are everywhere, and each one pulls on her heart a little more, creating a longing she cannot escape. What makes memories so impactful is that they are often filtered through nostalgia. In the present moment, she may have focused on flaws or frustrations, but once you are gone, those details fade and the mind highlights the good. She remembers the laughter more than the arguments, the comfort more than the conflict. Memory has a way of polishing the past, making what was ordinary seem extraordinary. And in that filtered recollection, she realizes just how much she misses the moments she once overlooked. These memories also serve as proof of your impact. They remind her that your presence left a mark she cannot erase. No matter how much she tries to fill the space with new people, new experiences, or new distractions, the mind keeps circling back. She may hear someone say something that sounds like you, and it stings because it's not the same. She may find herself in a place you once visited together, and suddenly the weight of your absence feels overwhelming. That's the power of memory. It keeps you alive in her world, even when you're no longer there. As these memories grow stronger, emotions naturally follow. She begins to miss the comfort, the support, the laughter, and even the small habits that made your presence unique. It's not just the big moments she longs for, it's the everyday details. The way you listened, the way you showed up, the way you made her feel safe without needing to say much. Those memories replay like scenes from a movie, except now they feel out of reach, and that distance creates longing. Missing you doesn't always begin in the present moment. It often begins in the past, with the memories she cannot silence. And the more those memories surface, the more she realizes that what she had with you was not ordinary. It was special, and now it's gone. That realization turns memories into emotions, and emotions into the undeniable truth that she misses you more than she expected. It's often not until she meets others that she begins to feel the depth of what she lost. Interactions with new people shine a light on what used to feel so natural with you. At first, she might believe she can replace your presence easily, that someone else will give her the same connection or even more. But with every new conversation, every attempt at building comfort with someone else, she notices something missing. The laughter doesn't feel as genuine, the attention doesn't carry the same warmth, and the energy doesn't match the way you once made her feel. This contrast slowly awakens the realization that what she once had was not ordinary, and it begins to create a longing she cannot ignore. Other interactions highlight uniqueness. She may encounter someone who is kind but not consistent, someone who is charming but lacks depth, someone who listens but doesn't truly understand. Every flaw in these encounters amplifies your value. The moments she once overlooked with you suddenly stand out because no one else is able to replicate them. It's in the differences that she begins to see your irreplaceability. You weren't just another voice or another presence. You brought a certain balance, patience, and reliability that others simply cannot offer. The contrast also exposes the comfort she had with you. With you, there was a natural flow, conversations that didn't need effort, silences that didn't feel heavy, and a trust that was built over time. With others, she feels the weight of trying. She realizes how rare it is to find someone who understands without needing explanation, who supports without demanding recognition, who gives without keeping score. Every new interaction feels like work, and that makes her miss the ease she once felt with you. As these comparisons continue, she begins to reflect more deeply. The excitement of novelty wears off quickly, and she's left with the truth. Not everyone carries the same kind of presence. While she may have thought you were easily replaceable, reality shows her otherwise. She finds herself mentally comparing others to you, and every time the comparison falls short. That's when she begins to feel a longing, not just for the person, but for the emotional security that only you provided. What makes this contrast powerful is that it often happens when she least expects it. She doesn't set out to compare, but her heart does it for her. A gesture from someone else might remind her of the way you used to do it better. A conversation with another might remind her how deeply you used to listen. A moment of silence might remind her of the peace she only felt in your presence. Slowly, she realizes that what she once dismissed as normal was, in fact, extraordinary. It is through the lens of other interactions that your true value becomes clear. She sees that not every smile carries the same warmth, not every word carries the same weight, and not every presence fills the same space. And when those realizations hit, the missing grows stronger. Because in a world full of people, she now understands that your energy, your presence, and your consistency were not something she can easily find again. Detachment is one of the most powerful signals you can ever give. It is not anger, not revenge, not even indifference. It is strength. When you stop chasing, stop explaining, and stop trying to convince someone of your worth, you begin to stand in a position of quiet power. Detachment tells her that you are no longer tied to her reactions, her validation, or her approval. That shift unsettles her more than anything else because it breaks the control she thought she had over your emotions. The very energy she once relied on is no longer available to her, and that absence forces her to feel the reality of your distance. When you were deeply invested, your emotions were predictable. She knew you would show up no matter what, that your patience would carry the weight of the connection, and that your consistency would remain even in the face of neglect. But when detachment enters the picture, the entire dynamic shifts. You are no longer responding to every signal, no longer seeking clarity, no longer making yourself available whenever she feels like reaching out. That space you create by stepping back is powerful because it puts the focus back on her. She now feels the silence, the absence, and the lack of control, and it makes her reflect on what she had when your energy was fully present. Detachment is attractive because it shows self-respect. It communicates that your happiness is not dependent on her behavior. instead of desperately clinging, you choose to hold yourself with dignity, and that dignity commands attention. She notices that your world doesn't revolve around her anymore, and this creates an unsettling void. What once felt secure, knowing you would always be there, suddenly feels shaky. She begins to wonder where your focus has gone, what you are doing, and why you no longer chase the way you once did. That curiosity turns into longing because detachment has a way of shifting the power of desire. This strength is not about pretending to be cold or shutting yourself off emotionally. It's about refusing to let your identity be tied to her response. It's the decision to prioritize your peace, your growth, and your self-worth above the uncertainty of waiting for someone else to choose you. And ironically, it is in that moment when you stop needing her that she begins to feel her need for you. The balance of desire flips. She starts to notice the absence of your attention more sharply because it was once so constant, and now it's gone. True detachment leaves her with a mirror. She sees what she lost, not because you told her, not because you argued for it, but because your silence and withdrawal show it louder than words ever could. And the more she feels that, the more she begins to miss you for real. It's the strength of detachment that makes her realize your presence was never something to take for granted. It was a gift, and now that gift is gone. Time has a way of stripping away illusions. In the beginning, when emotions are high or distractions are plenty, she may not fully recognize the value of what she had with you. She might convince herself that she can move on easily, that your presence was replaceable, or that she will feel nothing in your absence. But time has a way of softening pride and magnifying truth. As days turn into weeks and weeks stretch into months, the reality begins to sink in. The consistency she once dismissed, the love she once overlooked, and the stability she once felt secure in are not so common after all. Time reveals that what seemed ordinary was actually rare. At first, the silence feels manageable. She may even feel relieved, telling herself that space was needed. But slowly, the emptiness begins to grow. Time creates space for reflection. And in that space, her mind replays moments she didn't appreciate before. She remembers the way you made her feel important, the way your presence gave her comfort, and the way your attention reminded her she mattered. With distance, those little things begin to feel larger than life because she now experiences life without them. What was once taken for granted becomes a longing, and the longer the time passes, the sharper that longing becomes. The truth is, time doesn't just reveal what was valuable, it exposes what is missing. She may meet others, fill her days with distractions, or bury herself in routines, but over time she realizes something is off. The laughter isn't as genuine, the comfort isn't as deep, and the consistency doesn't exist the way it did with you. The more life goes on without you, the clearer it becomes that not everyone can give what you once gave. Time has a way of comparing past and present, and in that comparison, your worth becomes undeniable. Another thing time does is dissolve ego. In the heat of emotions, pride often clouds clarity. She may have told herself she didn't care or didn't need you, but time wears down those walls. With space, the ego grows weaker and honesty takes its place. She starts to admit, even if only to herself, that she does miss you, that your presence mattered more than she allowed herself to admit at the time. This honesty doesn't come overnight. It builds quietly, little by little, until it becomes impossible to ignore. Most importantly, time transforms perspective. She begins to see not just what you gave, but the intention behind it, the patience, the effort, the care that you offered freely. These things take on a deeper meaning when they are no longer available. That's when missing becomes real. It's no longer about a fleeting emotion. It's about the realization that she let something valuable slip away. Time turns what she once thought was replaceable into something unforgettable. And in that truth, she begins to feel the full weight of your absence, not as a moment, but as a lasting presence in her heart. Ego is often the greatest barrier to truth. It makes her believe she doesn't need you, that she can live without your presence, and that your absence doesn't matter. Ego convinces her to stay silent, to act indifferent, to put on a mask of strength, even when inside she feels the pull of what's missing. But ego is temporary and it always cracks under the weight of reflection. Reflection comes in the quiet moments, the times when distractions fade and she is left alone with her thoughts. That is when honesty begins to rise above pride and she starts to see what she had and what she lost. Reflection is powerful because it doesn't lie. When she looks back, she sees your effort clearly. She remembers the patience, the care, the times you showed up without being asked. Ego may have made her dismiss these things in the moment, but reflection brings them back in their true form. With distance, she sees how much of herself was supported by your presence, how much comfort your consistency gave her, and how rare it is to find someone who genuinely invested in her. The same actions she once overlooked now feel priceless in her memory, and that shift begins to stir emotions that ego can no longer silence. The longer reflection grows, the weaker ego becomes. At first, she may fight it, trying to convince herself she is fine, trying to hold on to the illusion of strength, but the truth always wins. Late nights, familiar places, small reminders, all of these push her back into reality. She starts to admit to herself that she misses you, that the silence feels heavier than she expected, and that your absence has left a mark. Reflection doesn't care about appearances or pride. It forces her to acknowledge what's real, even if it hurts her to do so. Ego is about control, but reflection is about truth. And when reflection overtakes ego, that's when missing you becomes undeniable. It's no longer about what she wants others to think or how strong she appears. It's about what she feels deep inside. The comparisons with others don't measure up. The memories grow louder, and the weight of your absence becomes too real to ignore. She no longer hides behind indifference because reflection makes her face the fact that you mattered, perhaps more than she ever admitted. This is the stage where pride fades into vulnerability. She begins to see clearly that your role in her life was unique, that the comfort you gave was not something she can easily replace, and that her ego cost her more than she realized. Reflection humbles her, softens her, and in that honesty, she begins to long for what she lost. It's not just a thought anymore, it's an ache, a pull, a constant reminder that you were not ordinary. And when reflection finally overtakes ego, the missing is no longer hidden. It becomes real, raw, and inescapable. At the end of it all, what truly makes her miss you for real is not a single act, but the collection of everything you withdrew. The silence that spoke louder than your words, the self-focus that showed your strength, the consistency she once overlooked, the memories that never stop echoing, the comparisons that made others fall short, the calm detachment that reflected your worth, the passing of time that revealed your true value, and the reflection that finally broke her ego. Missing you doesn't begin the moment you leave. It begins when she realizes through every layer of absence that what you offered was rare, that your presence was a gift, and that the world without you feels heavier, emptier, and incomplete. That's when she starts missing you for real, not just as a thought, but as a truth she cannot escape.